Suho Kim, a civil engineering student, falls asleep reading a fantasy novel and wakes up inside the story. He becomes Lloyd Frontera, a lazy noble from a family buried in debt. Using his knowledge from the real world, he starts building inventions to change their future. With the help of a giant hamster, a loyal knight, and a bit of magic, he begins digging the Frontera family out of ruin and into something greater. The story begins with Suho Kim now living as Lloyd Frontera. He pushes his shovel into the ground and uses a skill. A glowing 3D map appears in front of him. Lloyd dreams of tall buildings and big changes. He laughs, thinking about all the money he could earn. He calls for Javier, a young man with blue hair. Javier looks confused. He asks if Lloyd has gone crazy. A few years earlier, Suho Kim gets a strange message. A system says he won a wish from a being called the Absolute. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in someone else's body. The system tells him he is now a character in a story called Night of Blood and Iron, and Suho remember he had just read this story the night before. Lying on a dirt road, Suho now Lloyd is confused. His jaw hurts and a message pops up, saying his jaw is out of place from sleeping on the ground. He swats it away, annoyed. Then he remembers the story. There was a useless noble who passed out drunk and got left outside. Now, Suho knows he has become that character. A voice calls his name. It's Javier Strahan, the hero of the story. Javier says he looked for Lloyd all night. Lloyd is shocked. Javier is supposed to be a strong swordsman, but now he's just a young knight serving Lloyd's father, Lord Arcos. Javier protects Lloyd, the noble's troublemaking son. Javier lights a fire and tells Lloyd what happened. Lloyd had gotten drunk, broke things at a pub, and passed out on the road. Javier says Lord Arcos was worried. Even if Lloyd acts badly, he's still his son. Lloyd wishes he had warm floors like back in Korea. Javier says he'll report to the manor. Lloyd tells him not to, and he remembers the Frontera family is deep in debt. Later, Lloyd sits alone, thinking. He remembers the ending of the story. The Baron and Baroness lose everything and take their own lives. The old Lloyd dies alone, drunk and poor. Lloyd feels angry at the Absolute. He wonders what wish he made to end up like this. The next morning, Lady Marbella, Lloyd's mother, comes with Javier. She scolds Lloyd for his behavior, but Lloyd wants to change. When he agrees to apologize, she and Javier are surprised. Javier takes Lloyd to the pub. On the way, villagers see Lloyd and grow quiet. Some hide. The system says they hate him. Lloyd already knows his past actions made people fear him. He asks Javier why he sticks around. Javier says Lord Arcos ordered him to look after Lloyd. Lloyd wants to change how people see him. He also needs to make money. He asks the system if he has any powers. The system says yes, 2 useless ones, human scum and rowdy drunkard. They only make people dislike him. Annoyed, Lloyd shows the message to Javier, not realizing they've reached the pub. Inside, Lloyd sees the mess he caused. He tries to say sorry, but the owner is scared. So Lloyd acts rude again, and strangely, the owner seems more relaxed. Outside, Lloyd asks why the man still looks upset. Javier says the broken furniture cost a lot. The owner works hard and cares for his sick mother. Lloyd listens but feels stuck. His family has no money. Then an idea hits him. In Korea, they used heated floors called ondal. No one in this world has them. Maybe he can build and sell them to make money. The old Lloyd never thought like this. But Suho Kim remembers his civil engineering days and his time in the military. He knows he can do this. Lloyd tells Javier to go back to the pub and order materials. Javier asks why, but before Lloyd can answer, a message appears. It says, "Your true journey begins." The RP system is unlocked. Lloyd can now earn points by building strong ties with important people. Lloyd thinks there is no clear information on how to use the new system. For now, he just follows its instructions. He looks at Javier and sees the approval rating is at -30. That's not surprising, given Lloyd's past behavior. Trying to raise the rating, Lloyd awkwardly compliments Javier's hair, saying it looks good. But the rating drops by 1 more point. Seeing that he can't improve their relationship this way, Lloyd decides to move on and go to the pub. At the pub, he gives the owner a contract. The contract says Lloyd will work as the builder, and the owner will be the buyer. Lloyd will pay for the damage he caused by working on the construction. He asks the owner to sign it, but the man looks unsure. He didn't want to scare the owner, but his tough reputation makes the man afraid. The owner quickly signs the contract. The system mocks Lloyd, calling him garbage. Still, Lloyd feels happy to have his first order. He thanks the pub owner and says the man made a good choice. Javier watches, surprised at how different Lloyd acts. Lloyd starts to prepare building the house. He plans to use the Ondal floor system from his past life. Javier tells him that threatening the pub owner is just more trouble. Lloyd says Javier is being unfair and asks if he knows about cognitive distortion when someone thinks others will always act the same way because of the past. Javier says his judgment comes from experience and facts. Lloyd says those are only from the past. Javier wonders if Lloyd was always this smooth with words. Lloyd begins digging the ground. He says he wants to make the pub owner and his mother smile. Their smiles will help him make money. He digs, moves dirt, packs it, and repeats. When the hole is ready, he builds the frame using timber from the Baron's warehouse. He makes the walls with clay from the river. Lloyd feels tired and sore, realizing how weak his body is. Javier teases him, saying it was not much work. Lloyd gets angry it took him a whole week. Even though Lloyd is very tired, he tries to swing an axe to keep working. His body shakes, and he almost falls. Javier catches him and asks for the wood measurements. Lloyd gives them, still confused. Javier lifts the logs and cuts them precisely with his sword to make the slabs Lloyd needs. Lloyd smiles and pats Javier on the shoulder. He suggests Javier help with digging once he finishes cutting. Javier gets mad inside, thinking Lloyd has no gratitude. The system warns Lloyd that Javier regrets helping him. Still, Javier helps dig a channel under the house to spread warm air for the Ondal heating. When the house is done, Lloyd cheers and places a logo inside for his new construction brand. He teases Javier about the heating system using firewood and air channels to warm the home. The pub owner's mother lies on the warm floor, feeling how relaxed her stiff joints are. The owner is amazed and calls it magic. He thanks Lloyd with deep gratitude. Javier watches, shocked that Lloyd made this happen. Seeing the two smiling, Javier smiles too. The system says Javier's approval rating goes up by 2 points. Lloyd grins and jokes that Javier isn't total garbage after all. Javier denies it. Even though Lloyd loses money on the timber, he breaks new ground literally and in his work and now has a model house to show others. A few days later, a crowd gathers to see the house. One person praises how warm the floor feels, saying it could melt him. Lloyd hands out building plans and offers a 10% discount. But the system warns that the villagers still don't trust him. Lloyd tries to scare them into interest with his usual tough image. Just then, someone calls out. It's his father, Arcos Frontera, asking what Lloyd thinks he's doing. Lloyd feels nervous. He thinks his father will scold him in front of everyone. At dinner, Lloyd tries to avoid his father, but Lord Arcos stops him and asks what he's doing. Lloyd answers a bit rudely. He says he built an andal room for the pub owner. As Lloyd tries to leave, his father tells him not to worry about the family's debt. He promises to fix the money problems soon and says Lloyd shouldn't get too involved. Lloyd remembers hearing this before from his father in the real world, but knows it was a lie. Deep down, he feels things are not okay. Before leaving, Lloyd quietly tells Lord Arcos not to give up. He won't give up either. It's what he once wanted to say to his real father. Lloyd thinks about a big order for 89 houses. He walks to the manor yard and sees moneylenders trying to enter the Baron's office. They ignore Lloyd. Inside, the moneylenders pressure Lord Arcos to repay the loan. They say 5 days have passed since the due date and threaten action. Lloyd watches from behind the door and smiles, planning something. The night before, Lloyd gained RP points from his friendship with Javier. He learns he can use points to get new skills. The system scans and finds many skills Lloyd brought from his past life, like soil mechanics and steel design. Lloyd takes all the new skills. Using basic survey, his eyes glow green, and he can map the manor yard without GPS. Basic design lets him draw building plans on a hidden screen. He wishes he could summon heavy machines, but he only has 1 RP point. The first summon needs 50 points. He decides to collect more. Back in the office, the fat moneylender pounds the table and says if Lord Arcos has no money, he should sell the Baroness and her ladies for gold. Lord Arcos is shocked. Lloyd appears and tells the lender to show a warrant. He explains that nobles can protect their homes by law. Entering without a warrant is trespassing. Lloyd calls Javier, who draws his sword. Lloyd orders Javier to cut off the lender's arms for trespassing. The lenders panic and run away. Lord Arcos scolds Lloyd for overreacting. Lloyd drops a bag of gold coins on the table, saying it's from house orders. Lord Arcos thinks Lloyd forced the villagers. Javier says he will make sure Lloyd finishes the orders. Lord Arcos agrees not to stop Lloyd's business. As they leave, Javier asks where Lloyd learned that law. Lloyd says he just picked it up, but really read it in a book. In the original story, after the Baron and Baroness died, Javier had no master. He met two moneylenders, used that law, then cut off their heads. Lloyd smiles, happy to know the story. A notification pops up. The Baron's approval rating rises by 6, and Lloyd gains 60 RP points. That night, Lloyd sneaks quietly into the training yard, making sure no one is nearby. He calls up the system and starts the summoning game. A magic circle shaped like turning gears appears on the ground. It looks big and flashy, but is actually tiny and very noisy. From the circle, a small hamster pops out. Lloyd watches with little interest. The hamster lands with a soft thud and looks up at Lloyd with big, hopeful eyes. Lloyd tells it that it's just a dot, which surprises the hamster. As Lloyd turns to leave, the hamster suddenly speaks, saying it can help by shooting acorns with a pew-pew sound. Lloyd is still unsure but listens. The hamster then spits out a user manual. It says its name is Podong, a cute little creature meant to be cared for. The manual explains that feeding Podong a sunflower seed will change its size. Red seeds make it grow huge, while blue seeds shrink it back down. Curious, Lloyd feeds Podong a red seed. In seconds, Podong grows into a giant 30-foot beast and knocks Lloyd to the ground. The hamster's face now wears a sly, almost villainous grin. The system shows Podong's powers: digging, packing dirt by rolling over it, and storing dirt in its cheek pockets. Lloyd feels excited. Finally, he has heavy machinery, only it's a giant hamster. But he worries about showing Podong to others. People might get suspicious. Lloyd decides to carry a summoning book to pretend he's a master summoner if anyone asks. Next, Lloyd needs workers. He calls the family soldiers and gathers 30 knights from Frontier Barony. He tells them to keep a safety-first mindset, but most look confused or sleepy. Lloyd feels frustrated. These men have been paid to do nothing while the Baron sinks deeper into debt. Now, thanks to them, Lloyd has free labor. He points to a big pile of clay and says they will move it to start the estate's renewal project. The soldiers look unhappy and disappointed. This is not what they expected. Just then, a senior knight named Newman appears. He questions Lloyd's orders and refuses to accept them. Lloyd says he has Lord Arcos' permission, but Newman says Lloyd's past actions show otherwise. He accuses Lloyd of using the soldiers for his own gain. Lloyd shrugs and admits that's true. Then he warns Newman if he wants a fight, he can have one. Newman's face turns red with anger. Lloyd throws a shovel full of dirt into Newman's face. The soldiers gasp. Even as the Baron's son, Lloyd stands his ground. He raises the shovel and points it at Newman's face, challenging him to a duel. At the manor, Javier asks Lloyd if he really wants to fight Newman instead of talking things out. Lloyd laughs and says he isn't confident at all. He calls himself a low-level sword expert knight with a mana heart skill, and calls Javier a nobody. Then he asks what Javier was thinking, if he was thinking at all. Lloyd even mocks Javier for using his brain. Javier gets angry, almost ready to strike, but holds back. He remembers how Lloyd suddenly insulted Newman and challenged him. It feels planned, not random. Javier wonders if Lloyd is going back to his old wild ways, or if he has a secret plan. Lloyd then asks the Baron to keep him away from Newman to make the fight bigger. He also names Sir Bayern to watch over the soldiers. Now Lloyd says he isn't confident about the duel after all. Javier is confused and wishes he could just stop Lloyd. Then Lloyd asks something strange. He wants Javier to teach him how to use a sword. Javier says no. He says his job is only to watch over Lloyd. He warns that if someone like Lloyd learns sword skills, others will be in danger. Lloyd tells Javier to calm down and asks again if he will teach him. To convince Javier, Lloyd offers to cure his insomnia if Javier agrees. Javier is surprised. He never told anyone about his sleep problem, but Lloyd already knows from a book. Lloyd explains the book says Javier is about to become a sword master. His senses are so sharp that he can't sleep. Insomnia is a side effect of getting stronger. Lloyd knows Javier lives far away and doesn't understand this. He asks again, will Javier teach him or not? Javier can't hide his insomnia and finally agrees, but he says Lloyd will fail. He has tried every cure but nothing worked. That night, Javier sleeps deeply for the first time in a long while. Lloyd smiles, knowing what he did. The book says Javier only sleeps well when hearing magic spells. Lloyd used his own super boring book, stronger than any spell. He claims Javier's sword skills now belong to him. The next day, Javier looks refreshed. He tells Lloyd to run 50 laps around the manor. Javier watches, nervous, as Lloyd starts running without complaining. Lloyd is weak, but keeps going. After the first lap, he tells Javier he wants to learn real sword skills. He keeps running to prove Javier wrong. On the next lap, Lloyd shouts he knows what Javier thought that Lloyd would refuse and fail. But Lloyd keeps going. With help from the system, he pushes Javier, both mentally and physically. Lloyd laughs inside. It's hard, but compared to his past life in Korea, this is easy. Before, Lloyd woke every day in a tiny room with no family. He worked hard, hauling bricks and unloading trucks to survive. He hoped things would get better. Now, running and smiling is nothing. Seeing Lloyd's determination, Javier decides he will teach him swordsmanship. Meanwhile, in the Baron's office, Lord Arcos is angry. He can't believe Lloyd disrespected Newman, who protected their family for years. He hoped Lloyd had changed, but now he doubts it. The Baron can't stop the duel, but asks Newman to be careful. Newman is Lloyd's heir and should not be seriously hurt. But Newman thinks differently. He believes the duel may not go as planned. If he kills Lloyd and the Baron objects, he will kill the Baron and Baroness too. He will make it look like a double suicide and leave the village for a city. Thanks to Lloyd's wild ways, things are moving fast for him. That night, Newman laughs in the dark, excited by his plans. A month later, at the county training ground, the duel day arrives. The Baron, Baroness, Javier, and Sir Baron watch nervously. Newman steps forward and asks Lloyd if he is ready. Lloyd, holding a shovel, mocks Newman and says he is ready to win. The villagers and knights watch, confused, as Lloyd fights Newman with a shovel. This angers Newman. It turns out Lloyd asked the blacksmith for a strong iron shovel made just for this battle. Lord Arcos thinks it must be a joke, given Lloyd's past behavior. But Javier doesn't believe that. He has watched Lloyd closely for the past month. Lloyd trains early every morning without complaining, runs around construction sites teaching village workers about Andal, and practices sword moves until night. Javier knows jokes don't look like this. Lloyd is serious now. The duel begins. Newman looks confident but does not draw his sword. Lloyd moves awkwardly with the shovel, not looking ready for a real sword fight. Many think Lloyd is just mocking Newman. Newman swings his sword hard in anger, but Lloyd blocks the strike easily with his shovel and does not even flinch. Newman tries again, saying luck can't happen twice. Again, Lloyd blocks the blow with little effort. Javier is shocked. Lloyd's moves are quick and exact like real fighting, not old-fashioned swordplay. Lloyd, being from Korea, knows this well. His fighting style comes from modern hand-to-hand combat and bayonet training. Lloyd thinks about how the shovel is stronger than it looks. Its wide blade works like a shield and can cut thick roots. It even acts like a pogo stick, which looks silly but makes Newman look foolish. Even though Lloyd's fight seems strange to the crowd, he defends perfectly. His first weapon is the shovel. The second is the basic sword skills he learned from Javier. The third is a special skill from the system called shoveling, unlocked with points earned by working hard and impressing the Baron and Baroness. Newman gets more and more angry. He uses his mana heart, something he promised not to use against a civilian. But pride wins over promise. As soon as he uses it, both Lloyd and Javier know the fight is getting serious. Javier explains that mana heart takes years to master 10 for normal people, 5 for prodigies. Javier thinks Lloyd cannot block the next attack, but Lloyd surprises him again. He shows his fourth weapon, Mana Conjuring, the core skill that made Javier the strongest man in the story. It lets Lloyd absorb his opponent's mana by touch. With a strong swing, Lloyd sends the mana through his shovel. The strike hits Newman's face hard, knocking out his teeth. Lloyd does not stop. He keeps hitting Newman, smashing him into the ground again and again. The crowd stands silent, shocked. Lord Arcos calls the duel over. Lloyd has won. But Lloyd ignores the call. He walks to Newman and says it's time for a real beating. Lord Arcos tries to stop him, but Lloyd does not care. He keeps hitting Newman with the shovel, making him look weak and embarrassed. Sir Bayern and Javier wonder if Lloyd has finally lost his mind. The knights try to stop Lloyd, grabbing him and telling him to stop again and again. Lloyd pretends to agree and tells them to let go. He takes a breath, then starts hitting Newman hard again. Javier sees Lloyd strike every part of Newman's body on purpose. Looking at Lloyd's calm face, Javier thinks Lloyd already knows what will happen next. Lloyd acts like he understands everything. Javier remembers that 15 days ago, Lloyd asked him to teach the Asrahan core technique. Lloyd kept pushing, saying he didn't want to learn how to steal, but a skill that pulls mana from around, not just from inside the person. Javier hasn't told anyone about this technique because it's not finished. He asks Lloyd where he learned about it. Lloyd says Javier talks about it in his sleep when Lloyd sings him lullabies. Javier says sorry and that he can't teach it yet. Lloyd says since he already knows it, he can help Javier finish it. That means Javier will teach him. Lloyd explains how to use the technique. Javier tries to pull outside mana and mix it with the mana in his heart, but it bounces away. The mana heart sees outside mana as a stranger. Lloyd tells him to try a different way. Instead of mixing the two, Javier should gather outside mana nearby and use it around his mana heart. With Lloyd's help, Javier finally improves the Asrahan core. On the first try, Javier reaches 3 circles and feels he can reach 5 or more soon. His approval rating goes up by 5. Lloyd jokes he only wants to learn how to absorb mana, not all the fancy stuff. He wants just the mana that touches his body so he can beat Newman. And he plans to win easily. Lord Arcos loses his patience. He yells at Lloyd to stop and says he won't allow Lloyd to insult Sir Newman's honor. Lloyd stops and tells his father to look under the tablecloth and decide if Newman deserves respect. Lord Arcos finds many letters. He is shocked to see they are letters between Newman and Torts, a man who tricked Lord Arcos in a land deal. The letters show the land's money problems, fake documents, and secret plans. Newman is surprised to see the letters because he hid them in the wall. Lloyd smiles, knowing Javier will find these letters later, just like the book says. Lloyd had someone watching for them the night before. Lord Arcos takes a moment to accept the truth. Most people would want Newman punished now, but Lloyd knows his father is kind. Lloyd also knows kindness doesn't always mean good leadership. Lloyd suggests a punishment for Newman. He says they should drop a fierce mouse on Newman's head. If Newman gets hurt, he will be exiled. If not, he will be lowered to a foot soldier and given a chance to change. Everyone is confused, including Lord Arcos. Sir Bader thinks it is a smart and kind idea that also warns others. Lord Arcos agrees and asks Newman if he objects. Newman says no and thanks him for the mercy. Lloyd thinks for a moment. He wonders if mercy will make Newman change. He believes it won't. Instead, Newman will grow more stubborn and clever to come back stronger. Newman smiles and tells Lloyd he will have revenge on the Baron's family. Lloyd sees the smile and says it's nice to see, but it will be the last time. Newman asks what that means. Lloyd feeds a red seed to a pot and throws Potong into the air with a serious look. He says the best way to ask for forgiveness is to know there is none. Potong grows into a huge mouse and lands on Newman's head. With that, Lloyd announces Newman's exile and reveals he is now a summoner.